I do have my escape, and that's death. And I'm okay with that. The man on camera spoke with the same level tone he used to describe construction materials. No emotion, no hesitation.
Go as far as I can. I do have my escape, and that's death. And I'm okay with that. So I'm getting to the point where just trying to live.
Just a statement of fact recorded in a hidden wilderness bunker stocked with weapons, ammunition, and supplies for years of occupation.
When he wasn't traversing the wilderness with his camera and dog, 41-year-old Peter was also a father and a husband.
The footage was one of hundreds of videos documenting something that began nearly a decade before. A project built in secret while a household continued its daily routines 30 miles away. What he was preparing to escape from, what he planned to use that bunker for, wouldn't become clear until April 22, 2012. That morning, firefighters arrived at a North Bend mobile home to find two women, Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller and her daughter Kaylene, dead from gunfire before an arson fire, failed to destroy the evidence. The investigation that followed would lead from that burned residence to a mountainside fortification and a 6-day manhunt that ended in a standoff. Before we dive in, leave a comment and tell me, is it morning, afternoon, or late night where you are right now? Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Certain details have been adjusted for storytelling and learning. The heart of the story, the message, is what I hope stays with you. I am a very shy person, and doing these videos really helps me open myself. The voice belonged to Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller, 41, a scrapbook artist who sold handmade paper flowers at local fairs and shared her craft process with the YouTube community. Despite chronic back pain that limited full-time work, she had built something online, a space where people watched her hands arrange colorful paper across her workspace, where stamps and ribbon and textured cardstock transformed into memory books under her patient instruction. She filmed tutorials on folding crepe paper into petals, assembling custom invitations layer by careful layer, preserving family celebrations in albums that could be held and reopened years later. The videos served a purpose beyond craft. They let her connect when her body made other employment difficult, when shyness kept her voice quiet in person but steady and warm through a camera lens. Her workspace was a study in texture and color. Handmade cards stacked beside rolls of patterned paper, tools organized within reach, everything arranged so she could create. Despite the pain that shadowed her days, her daughter understood cameras differently, but just as naturally. Kaylene Nicole Keller, 18, had graduated from Mount Si High School in 2011 and was preparing to attend Bellevue College that fall. Her path led toward environmental preservation and game technology. She wanted to build virtual worlds where people could explore ecosystems, create interactive experiences that taught care for the natural environment through the digital spaces her generation was learning to inhabit. Like her mother, she documented projects. Like her mother, she saw recording as a way to capture what mattered and share it forward. Both women used cameras to create, to preserve, to reach outward. In the Keller household in the North Bend area, recording was as ordinary as any other tool. Lynnettee filmed her craft work for an audience who valued handmade beauty and the patience it required. Kaylene captured her interests as she prepared for college and the career she imagined building, one that bridged the natural world with the virtual ones humans were constructing. The family documented birthdays, graduations, the everyday celebrations that mark time passing. Cameras were instruments of connection in their hands, ways of saying what you believed was worth sharing and remembering. But in that same household, another camera had been running for years. The footage it captured would explain nothing about paper flowers or environmental preservation or game design. It documented something neither woman's public videos revealed, something recorded in secret while Lynnettee spoke to her YouTube community about craft supplies and Kaylene, prepared for her first semester at Bellevue College. That camera pointed somewhere else entirely, toward a project no one in the family's visible life would have recognized or understood. Peter A. Keller's camera showed wilderness, a narrow trail barely visible through brush, and his voice explaining how he kept it hidden. Peter, 41, worked refurbishing computers during weekdays, but spent his other hours documenting a separate project on video. His footage began on a concealed wilderness trail on Rattlesnake Ridge, winding uphill through thick brush where he narrated his intent. I try to keep it as hidden as I can so other people will stay off of it. The camera followed him through terrain that required careful navigation, uphill climbs where his breathing grew heavier, branches he pushed aside to reveal a path that looked like nothing more than animal tracks, unless someone knew to look for deliberate construction. The trail led somewhere specific, somewhere he had been building for years, while the rest of his household documented entirely different projects. What he was documenting was a bunker, a fortified structure built into the mountainside over roughly 8 to 9 years, nearly a decade. While Lynnettee filmed craft tutorials and Kaylene prepared for college, Peter spent weekends carrying supplies up Rattlesnake Ridge in 30 to 40-pound packs. The video diary captured stages of construction that required patience and systematic planning. Excavation carved into the hillside, framing for a multi-level structure. Materials hauled load by load because there was no road access and no way to bring heavy equipment to a site this remote. He documented a generator somehow transported up the slope despite its weight, a wood stove he fashioned from a metal can with a chimney vented to minimize visible smoke, bedding arranged in one corner for sleeping, food stores stacked along reinforced walls, water collected in 5-gallon buckets that he must have carried full up the same steep trail. Everything transported by hand, everything recorded step by methodical step. 8 to 9 years, 30 to 40-pound packs. Every weekend, the weather allowed. The scale of it indicated something beyond a weekend retreat or seasonal hunting shelter. This was infrastructure meant for extended occupation, multiple levels connected by internal access points, fortified construction designed to withstand weather and remain concealed, supplies organized for long-term self-sufficiency. Peter's voice on the recordings called it home, a place to make the transition easier when the time came. But the footage left deliberately unclear what transition he meant or why he needed a hidden refuge, an hour's hike from the house where his wife and daughter lived, unaware that this project existed. The bunker explained where Peter imagined going. It did not yet explain when or what would need to happen before he could use what he had spent nearly a decade building. That clarity would come later in the diary, when the language shifted from documenting construction progress to documenting something else entirely, when he stopped recording what he was building and started recording what he planned to do. The construction diary entries gave way to recordings about leaving civilian life, being caught, and what Peter would do when pursuit began. The tone shifted. Where earlier videos cataloged rebar placements and ventilation modifications, the later recordings discussed end games. Peter spoke in measured phrases about scenarios where law enforcement would close in, where civilian existence would terminate, where the bunker would transition from project to refuge. The language remained matter-of-fact, the same steady cadence he used when describing load-bearing calculations, but the subject had changed. In one recording made 2 weeks before April 22nd, Peter addressed the camera with the same level expression he'd worn while discussing camouflage techniques. "I do have my escape, and that's death, and I'm okay with that," he said. No elaboration followed. He spoke the sentence as if commenting on a backup generator specification, then moved to other topics without inflection change. The statement appeared among other inventory items, provisions for extended occupation, ammunition counts, exit strategies. 2 weeks before the end, everything would be taken care of. 10 years in the bunker, if he lasted. Detective Mike Mellis would later review these recordings, frame by frame, searching for indicators that might have been actionable had anyone seen them in real time. The shift from builder to fugitive in waiting was documented, but the documentation lived on devices no one accessed until after the warrant was issued. By the time investigators cataloged the video library, the timeline had already concluded. While Peter recorded countdown considerations in the bunker, Lynnettee continued posting craft tutorial videos from the North Bend house. Her April uploads showed spring decoration techniques, Easter table settings, organized scrapbook storage solutions. The videos maintained the same cheerful instruction style she'd used for years: clear steps, encouraging narration, practical household creativity. Viewers left comments thanking her for inspiration. The comment section contained no warnings, no distress signals, no indication that the person filming glue gun techniques was living with someone documenting escape and death. Contingencies 30 miles away in a concealed fortification. The parallel timelines ran independently. Peter's bunker videos discussing the end of civilian life, Lynettee's home videos demonstrating seasonal wreaths, both recorded in isolation, both uploaded or stored without intersection. Neither timeline acknowledged the other's existence in content or tone. The craft videos showed a functioning household. The bunker videos showed endgame preparation. Both were filmed within a 2-week window of April 22nd. Peter's final bunker recordings carried no heightened emotion, no dramatic declarations. The camera captured the same steady demeanor he'd maintained across 8 years of construction documentation. He inventoried supplies. He discussed contingencies. He mentioned that civilian life would be taken care of, without specifying methodology or timeline precision beyond the vague 2 weeks marker. On April 22nd, the Diaries' vague future tense gave way to a fire scene. Neighbors in the North Bend mobile home park heard what sounded like an explosion on the morning of April 22nd, then saw flames coming through the windows of the Keller residence. Multiple calls reached dispatch within minutes. The fire spread quickly, consuming the roof before response crews arrived. Residents of the mobile home park who heard the initial blast described it as louder than any household gas leak they'd experienced. The flames were visible from several lots away. Fire response crews arrived to find the structure already engulfed, smoke pouring from every opening. Firefighters worked to suppress the blaze even as it ate through the frame. The heat pushed crews back twice before they controlled the main burn. Once the flames were knocked down and the roof stopped actively collapsing, the team prepared to enter and confirm no occupants had been trapped inside. What they found inside transformed the call from fire response to homicide investigation. Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller and Kaylene Keller had been killed by gunfire before the fire started. Their bodies were discovered in separate areas of the residence. The scene showed no signs of struggle or flight. Both had been shot where they were found. Fire and law enforcement investigators documented gasoline containers positioned throughout the home. Arson indicators were obvious: accelerant pour patterns, multiple points of origin, deliberate placement designed to ensure total destruction. But the fire had not accomplished what it was meant to. Ammunition and explosive devices remained intact enough to create ongoing hazards for the response team. The blaze had been set to destroy everything. It failed. April 22, 2012. 2 deaths. Arson indicators. 1 household member unaccounted for. Officials who documented the cause of death for Lynnettee and Kaylene confirmed gunshot wounds before any autopsy was completed. The injuries were apparent at the scene. Fire investigators cataloged the accelerant containers, photographed burn patterns, and documented the explosive materials that had survived. The home belonged to the Keller family: husband, wife, and adult daughter. 2 of those 3 had been accounted for. Peter A. Keller was not in the residence. He was not among the dead. He had not been present when firefighters arrived, and no witnesses reported seeing him leave. The timeline was unforgiving. His wife and daughter had been killed. His home set ablaze with enough gasoline and explosive material to level the structure, and he was absent from a scene that pointed to deliberate violence and arson. The question that had been vague in the diary recordings 2 weeks earlier, what Peter would do when civilian life ended, now had a concrete answer at the North Bend address. But it raised a more urgent question for investigators. Does a man set his own house on fire and wait around to explain? Investigators now had a deliberate fire, 2 deaths, and an absent household member whose recent actions could be traced. The question was no longer what had happened in the mobile home. It was where Peter Keller had gone. His truck would be found within hours. Peter's truck was located in downtown North Bend within hours. Keys still inside, the vehicle abandoned. It offered no immediate clues to where he had gone, but it confirmed he had not left the area by that route. The truck sat empty while investigators worked backward through the timeline. Peter's workplace colleagues, who reported his ambiguous departure statement about possibly not returning, described his last day as unremarkable until the moment he left. He told co-workers he might return tomorrow, next week, or possibly never. The statement had seemed odd, but not alarming at the time. Peter was known for occasional dark humor. Does that sound like someone planning to come back? Bank records showed a withdrawal of $6,200 in the days before the fire. The numbers told a story. $6,200. Enough for months in hiding if you had a place to go. Combined with the workplace departure and the abandoned truck, a pattern emerged. This was not panicked flight. Peter had prepared. On Wednesday, an arrest warrant was issued naming Peter A. Keller on 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree arson. The warrant represented formal allegation that probable cause existed to arrest. Not a conviction, not a verdict, not a finding of guilt. Those determinations could only follow arrest, trial, and adjudication. The legal machinery had begun, but its outcome remained undetermined. Investigators assessed Peter as potentially armed. The bunker diary footage recovered from the scene showed weapons, ammunition, and survival supplies stockpiled over nearly a decade. If he had reached that location before the warrant was issued, he would be fortified and difficult to extract. The question was whether investigators could determine where that fortified location was before Peter decided to move again or before someone encountered him by accident. 2 counts, first-degree murder. 1 count, first-degree arson. Allegation, not conviction. The vehicle search produced no map, no coordinates, no destination written on paper. The bank withdrawal showed preparation, but not direction. The workplace statement suggested permanence, but not location. Investigators returned to the burned mobile home, searching for any evidence that had survived the fire's intended destruction. Fire destroys structure. But digital storage is stubborn. What they found would prove more valuable than the abandoned truck, the bank timeline, or the workplace farewell. Buried in the debris, investigators recovered a hard drive. The casing showed heat damage. The platters partially melted. But hard drives are designed to protect data, built with redundancy and shielding between external housing and magnetic storage. The fire had killed 2 people and collapsed a roof. It had not been hot enough to erase every sector of a consumer hard drive. The strongest map Peter left behind was not in his vehicle or his bank records. It was on that hard drive, digital footage and photographs documenting nearly a decade of construction, showing bunker layout, surrounding terrain, and the exact wilderness location investigators needed. The fire had failed to destroy it. What investigators found on the recovered hard drive transformed the search from a crime scene investigation into a wilderness manhunt. The digital media survived the fire because hard drives protect data with multiple layers of shielding. Technical specialists accessed the platters and began recovering files. The footage showed Peter speaking directly to camera across hundreds of hours, construction diaries documenting something he had built in secret. Investigators reviewed video after video, photograph after photograph. What emerged was not planning or fantasy. The bunker Peter had documented over 8 years of diary entries was real. He had built it. The bunker wasn't a plan, it was an address. The videos showed construction stages spanning years, a concealed wilderness trail, excavation and framing, a multi-level fortified structure built into a hillside. Photos documented supplies, interior layout, food stores, water systems, a generator, and a wood stove. Everything Peter had mentioned in his final countdown recordings was visible in the images, ammunition, provisions for extended occupation. Exit strategies materialized as actual infrastructure. Retired Sergeant Cindy West served as public information officer, coordinating communication between investigators and the media during the evolving case. She explained how the investigation snowballed from what began as a residential fire. The bodies transformed it into a double homicide. The bunker footage transformed it into something unprecedented. A manhunt for an armed suspect who had spent nearly a decade preparing a hidden wilderness refuge in the Cascade foothills. The investigation snowballed from house fire to double homicide to wilderness manhunt. The question shifted from whether Peter had reached the bunker to whether investigators could locate it before he moved again or before someone stumbled into the area. The Cascade Range covers hundreds of square miles of dense forest, steep terrain, and unmarked wilderness. Without coordinates, the search area was impossible. Before revealing what that photograph contained, comment A if you think it showed something obvious, or B if it was hidden in plain sight. Add one reason in 5 to 10 words. Note: the next part includes some recreated details for narrative purposes. If that's not for you, feel free to pause here. Investigators separated the diary's planning language from potential location clues in the photographs. The images were inventoried by function, construction stages, supply documentation, interior views, and exterior landscape shots. Most photos showed only forest and bunker details, trees, soil, wooden framing, camouflage netting. Image analysts began examining background elements for anything that might narrow the search area. Does a photograph of trees tell you where in a mountain range those trees are growing? Not without something fixed, a landmark, a structure, a geographic feature that exists on a map. One photograph appeared to contain almost nothing useful. A blurry wilderness shot with trees and hillside taken from the bunker entrance looking outward. But when investigators treated a distant line in the background as geography instead of scenery, that photograph would narrow an entire mountain range to a handful of candidate locations. The line was about to become a map. What Detective Mike Mellis saw in the blurry photograph was a question about infrastructure, a distant line that might be electrical transmission rather than random scenery. The photograph showed wilderness, trees, and hillside. Even enhanced, the image remained out of focus. Most investigators saw nothing that identified a location. Detective Mike Mellis analyzed the recovered photographs and identified distant geographic features that other investigators had initially dismissed as background noise. He examined the image differently, looking not at the bunker or foreground details, but at faint shapes in the distance. What others had dismissed as visual artifacts or natural ridge lines, he considered as something else. What do you see when you look past the obvious? The distant line appeared to be a power transmission line. Below it, barely visible structures matched the profile of buildings in the North Bend outlet area. Cindy West explained how the breakthrough looked from an investigator's perspective. In one of the photos you can see, I couldn't see it. It looked like a power line in the distance, she said. One person seeing what others couldn't see at first. That was the difference between an impossible search and a solvable problem. Additional photos from the recovered media showed stream features and terrain angles that could be cross-referenced with known geography. Keep that power line in mind. If the line could be matched to actual transmission infrastructure near North Bend, and if the viewing angle could be calculated from the building's position, then the photograph wasn't just an image of wilderness. It was a directional vector. One investigator saw what others had missed: a power line in the distance. Investigators compared the photo's viewing direction from the identified power line and buildings with terrain elevation data and stream locations visible in other images. The analysis didn't produce exact coordinates. It produced inference. Photography records what the camera saw. Geography determines where the camera was standing. If Peter was looking toward North Bend from that angle and elevation, with that power line and those buildings in frame, he was likely somewhere on the western or northwestern slope of Rattlesnake Ridge. The enormous search area that had covered hundreds of square miles of Cascade wilderness narrowed to a few candidate zones on a single mountainside. The photograph that had seemed too blurry, too distant, too vague to be useful had become the primary geographic constraint. Independent reports arrived through tip lines and witness statements. Multiple people had seen Peter's faded red pickup parked repeatedly at a specific trailhead on Rattlesnake Ridge. The sightings stretched back months, sometimes years. Locals who recognized the truck as a regular fixture at that access point. The photographs supplied direction from distant landmarks. The trailhead tips supplied a ground-level starting point. One line from Peter's own documentation, one from witnesses who had never understood what they were observing, both converging toward the same mountainside. Peter's years of careful recording had created the map that would lead investigators to him. Two lines of evidence were converging on the same slope of Rattlesnake Ridge, but field teams would still need to find the concealed entrance in acres of wilderness. Field teams moved from the trailhead into the Rattlesnake Ridge wilderness, following tracker reports of heavy pack traffic on a trail heading uphill. Multiple witness statements had placed Peter's faded red pickup repeatedly at this access point. Now, searchers were looking for what that repeated presence had been building. Experienced wilderness trackers who identified signs of repeated heavy pack traffic on the concealed trail leading to the bunker found patterns consistent with someone carrying heavy loads over years. Compressed vegetation along a faint path, disturbed soil, and directional wear heading into steep terrain, 30 to 40 pounds, multiple trips. Someone had been moving supplies uphill for years. The physical evidence matched the pack weights Peter had mentioned in his construction diary videos. The search area still covered acres of dense forest and steep mountainside. Over days, teams moved systematically uphill, following tracker signs and searching for the concealed structure documented in recovered footage. They were looking for camouflage, hidden entrances, anything suggesting the multi-level fortification Peter had built. The breakthrough came not from sight, but from smell. Wood smoke drifted through the forest. Following the scent uphill, searchers spotted a thin column rising from what appeared to be natural hillside, the signature of Peter's engineered wood stove venting through a camouflaged chimney. The stove that kept him alive gave him away. The smoke led them to brush-covered terrain that resolved, upon closer approach, into something built rather than grown. The bunker was located at approximately 1,350 feet elevation. The concealed entrance was partially hidden by brush and terrain features, exactly as Peter's videos had shown. Visual inspection revealed the structure was more complex than a single room. Multiple access points, ladders, levels built into the hillside. Tactical response team deployed to contain and assess the fortified bunker structure. Once located, transmitted new imagery to command. "We've got new photos showing this bunker may have multiple level," the update reported. Multiple levels. Fortified structure. Weapons documented. Occupant status unknown. The recovered diary footage had documented weapons and ammunition stockpiled over years. The interior layout remained uncertain. Peter's videos showed construction stages, but not final configuration. No one knew if he was alone inside, armed, aware of the perimeter forming around him. The tactical assessment became a problem of unknowns. How many entry points, what defensive preparations, whether traps or hazards had been installed after the last video was recorded. Does a man build a fortified bunker and fail to consider how someone might try to enter it by force? Finding the entrance ended the search problem investigators had faced since the fire on April 22nd. It immediately created a different problem: contact, containment, and entry into an occupied fortified structure with unknown occupant status, potential weapons, and possible explosive hazards. The search phase that had consumed days was over. A 22-hour standoff was about to begin. Peter had built his refuge to withstand pursuit. Now the question was whether he intended to surrender or use what he had prepared. The tactical perimeter formed around the bunker at approximately 1,350 feet on Rattlesnake Ridge, positions established to contain all visible access points. The team surrounded the fortified structure, covering the entrance and visible ladders leading to upper levels. Containment was complete. Communication began. Initial hailing attempts identified law enforcement presence and commanded any occupant to exit peacefully. The warrant named Peter A. Keller for the deaths of Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller and Kaylene Nicole Keller. The commands echoed across the hillside. No clear response came from inside. When someone doesn't respond to law enforcement at their door, what does that silence usually mean? Non-lethal gas was deployed into accessible openings as a first tactic to encourage exit without forcing entry. The fortified, multi-level structure resisted easy penetration. It remained unclear whether the gas was reaching an occupant or dissipating through ventilation. Peter had engineered over years of construction. Observers reported possible movement inside, maybe lights, but couldn't confirm whether the gas was having any effect or even penetrating to the inhabited spaces. The bunker Peter built to keep the world out was keeping the tactical team out too.
I try to keep it as hidden as I can, so other people will stay off of it, which has worked so far.
Every defensive feature that would have protected him from hypothetical future threats now complicated the immediate operational problem. The camouflage that concealed the entrance made visual confirmation impossible. The multiple levels meant gas couldn't be directed with certainty. The engineering that showed careful planning now forced tactical restraint. Hours passed with no resolution. Command reassessed the approach rather than rushing an entry into a structure with unknown occupant status, documented weapons, and possible defensive measures. The diary footage had mentioned traps. The construction showed deliberate fortification. Radio communication reflected the operational uncertainty. Was Peter inside? Was he armed and aware of the perimeter? Was he waiting for an approach? The decision was made to prepare a controlled breach through the roof after exhausting less invasive options. 22 hours would pass before that entry was attempted. Unknown occupant status, documented weapons, possible traps. 22 hours of professional restraint. Tactical operations are built on certainty and control, knowing the layout, knowing the threat, knowing the variables. This standoff offered none of that. The bunker's interior configuration remained uncertain despite the recovered videos showing construction stages. Peter might have modified the structure after his last documented recording. The defensive preparations might include measures no video had captured. The team was forced to treat every possibility as real until proven otherwise. Cindy West coordinated information flow between the tactical command on the mountainside and the coordination center managing the broader investigation. The standoff that had begun when smoke led searchers to this concealed hillside was entering its second day. Patience was strategic, not passive. waiting for intelligence, waiting for certainty, waiting to reduce risk before committing officers to entry. After 22 hours of containment, hailing, gas deployment, and tactical patience, the team prepared to open the structure through the roof. The standoff was about to end, but not through arrest or surrender. The breach would reveal why no one had responded to 22 hours of communication attempts. One final hailing attempt was made before the breach, commands for Peter Keller to exit, identification of law enforcement, opportunity for peaceful resolution. No response came. The tactical team prepared to execute the roof breach. Then officers heard a sound from inside the structure. Cindy West later explained the sequence of what happened in those final moments. It was just a short time after they initially tried to make contact with him that they heard a pop, she said. The meaning wasn't immediately clear. Was it structural failure? An interior accident? Something else? The breach continued as planned. Cautiously, a pop. A short time after contact, the meaning would become clear during breach. The roof breach was executed, and the entry team went in through the multi-level structure, moving carefully through spaces that had been fortified against exactly this kind of approach. Peter A. Keller was found dead inside from an apparently self-inflicted gunshot. No other occupants were present. No additional victims. The immediate public danger that had driven the 6-day search from fire scene to wilderness manhunt to 22-hour standoff had ended, but not through arrest or surrender. The pop had been Peter ending the confrontation on his terms before officers could reach him. Inside the bunker, investigators documented what Peter had assembled over years of construction, weapons, ammunition, food supplies, water storage, survival gear, and cash. Withdrawn from his bank account before the fire, the inventory served evidentiary function now rather than tactical urgency. Everything the video diaries had shown was confirmed in physical form. The refuge built over nearly a decade, the supplies carried load by load up the mountainside in 30 to 40-pound packs. The fortified position reached but never used as planned. The interior showed Peter had prepared to occupy the space for an extended period. The documented provisions would have sustained someone for months. The weapons matched the arsenal visible in recovered footage. The engineering that had resisted tactical gas deployment was confirmed to be as sophisticated as the construction videos suggested. Multiple levels, ventilation systems, reinforced structure. The operational threat had ended. The manhunt was complete. But the legal process that began with an arrest warrant for 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree arson would never reach trial. Peter died before arrest, before interrogation, before he could answer in court for Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller and Kaylene Nicole Keller. The warrant remained. The evidence was substantial, but the defendant it named would never stand before a judge. No arrest would occur. No trial would begin. No verdict would be delivered. No sentence would be imposed. The legal machinery that determines guilt through due process had been foreclosed before it could start. What investigators concluded from the evidence, and what a court never decided would have to be carefully distinguished. The April 22nd fire, the deaths of Lynnettee and Kaylene, the bunker, the flight, the standoff, all documented. But documentation is not adjudication. Peter Keller died as a suspect named in a warrant, not as someone convicted of a crime. The evidence that connected Peter Keller to the April 22nd fire and the deaths of Lynnettee and Kaylene was substantial, documented, photographed, and recovered from multiple scenes. What investigators assembled would never be tested in court, but it remained preserved in case files and official reports. Medical examiner findings documented gunshot wounds. Fire investigation reports cataloged arson indicators, accelerant patterns, and explosive materials at the mobile home. Peter's video diaries showed years of bunker construction and countdown language about leaving civilian life, capture, and death. His flight pattern demonstrated preparation: vehicle abandoned with keys, bank withdrawal completed days before, workplace departure marked by ambiguous farewell. The fortified bunker contained weapons, ammunition, provisions for extended occupation, and cash. The arrest warrant named 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree arson. Evidence documents what happened. Courts determine who is responsible. Peter Keller died before arrest. No trial took place. No jury heard testimony or examined evidence. No verdict was rendered. No conviction or sentence was imposed. Later sheriff findings attributed the acts to Peter based on the totality of evidence. But these were investigative conclusions drawn after the death, not legal adjudication, through the court system designed to determine criminal guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The distinction matters. In criminal law, a person is presumed innocent until a court declares otherwise through due process. Peter died before that process could begin. The warrant represented probable cause for arrest, a legal threshold far lower than proof of guilt. Investigators concluded based on recovered evidence, physical findings, and timeline analysis. But conclusion is not conviction. Warrant issued. No arrest, no trial, no verdict. In plain language, investigators determined that Peter Keller killed Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller and Kaylene Keller, set fire to the family home, and fled to the bunker, where he died before officers could reach him. The court system never had the opportunity to test that determination through trial. No judge instructed a jury. No jury weighed evidence or rendered a verdict. No sentence was pronounced. Legal caution about stating what never went through formal adjudication does not erase the evidence. The fire investigators' findings stand. The medical examiner's reports stand. The video documentation, the bunker inventory, the timeline all remain in the investigative record. But accuracy requires acknowledging the distinction between what investigators determined from evidence and what a court never decided through the adversarial process that defines American criminal justice. The bunker on Rattlesnake Ridge was later transferred to King County Department of Natural Resources and Parks. The fortified structure Peter spent nearly a decade building, carrying supplies load by load up the mountainside, engineering ventilation and reinforcement, preparing for extended occupation, was destroyed. The concealed hillside entrance disappeared. The multi-level interior was dismantled. What had consumed years of construction vanished in administrative disposal. Lynnettee and Kaylene's family chose what would remain in their names. Not concealment or violence or a hidden structure built in secret. Memory, purpose, what both women had created during their lives rather than what ended them.
In one of the photos, you can see, I couldn't see it. It looked like a power line in the distance. So you're looking off the mountain toward.
No trial followed Peter Keller's death in the bunker. The investigation that began on April 22nd ended without adjudication, leaving only what Lynnettee and Kaylene had created before that day, what they made with their hands and minds, what they planned for their futures, what they intended to contribute. Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller's scrapbooks, handmade cards, and custom invitations remained as tangible objects families could hold. Paper flowers she sold at craft fairs, memory books she assembled with layers of color, texture, and carefully preserved photographs, milestones documented in archival quality that would last decades. Her YouTube videos documented not just craft techniques, but her voice explaining process, her hands demonstrating folds and placements, her perspective on how creating beautiful things helped her connect with a community despite shyness and chronic pain that made leaving the house difficult. What she made was intended for others. Celebrations, preserved memories, shared beauty. The physical objects she crafted outlasted the person who made them, an outcome no one creating for joy anticipates. Her work showed care in small details, aligned edges, layered embellishments, color choices that reflected seasons or themes. She taught people how to make something lasting, Kaylene Nicole Keller was 18 when she died. She had graduated from Mountainside High School and planned to study environmental preservation and game technology at Bellevue College. Her interests centered on how worlds could be built, both natural and virtual. She cared about environmental conservation, about protecting ecosystems, and understanding how human activity affected landscapes. And she cared about game design, creating interactive experiences, designing characters and environments, imagining digital spaces where people could explore and learn. One set of images led toward concealment, another led toward connection and memory. The intersection of those interests, natural preservation and virtual world building, reflected someone thinking about how people understand spaces, whether physical terrain or constructed environments. At 18, Kaylene had identified what she wanted to study and where she wanted to study it. The ambitions were specific. The path forward was planned. College enrollment was confirmed. Family and estate assets, including money recovered from the bunker, were directed toward establishing a scholarship in Kaylene Nicole Keller's name. The scholarship was intended for young people pursuing studies similar to her interests: environmental science, conservation, game design, technology that builds understanding rather than concealing it. The purpose was not to close what happened, but to extend what she valued toward students who shared her ambitions. The scholarship used funds withdrawn before the fire, carried to the mountainside, and recovered after the standoff. Money intended for one purpose was redirected toward another. Estate assets that might have become frozen in legal proceedings became resources for students pursuing fields Kaylene never reached. The family chose to fund futures that reflected her interests rather than dwelling on what ended hers. The images that survived the fire led police toward Peter Keller's bunker. What Lynnettee and Kaylene created led somewhere else, into family memories and a scholarship for young people who shared Kaylene's ambitions. The investigation that began with a fire on April 22, 2012, ended without the trial that might have answered every question. What remains instead are the things Lynnettee and Kaylene created while they lived. Tangible reminders that people are more than how their stories end. Lynnettee's scrapbooks and YouTube craft tutorials continue to teach people how to preserve memories and create beauty. Kaylene's scholarship supports students pursuing environmental science and game design, the fields she never got to study at Bellevue College. These legacies weren't accidents. They reflected who both women were, people who made things, who cared about others, who planned for futures that were stolen from them. True crime stories force us to confront what happens when trust is violated and preparation turns sinister. But they also remind us that victims are people with ambitions, creativity, and contributions that outlast violence. The choice of what we build, whether it's hidden or shared, whether it isolates or connects, defines more than we realize. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts or honoring Lynnettee and Kaylene's memory. Sharing this video helps others find these stories and the lessons they carry. Thank you for listening with respect and care. This story is based on a real case, with some scenes dramatized for narrative clarity. My deepest respect goes to the families and loved ones of Lynnettee Louise Rocha Keller and Kaylene Nicole Keller. May their memory endure through what they created, not what was done to them.